Here we are on turn 2. Behind me is the turn 2 light tower with the famous clock. Underneath the light tower was another famous point, the Legends Bar, which was filled with so many legends who weren't racing on the night, and even some that may have been. A little bit further around the back straight, against the tree line, we had the Coca-Cola sign where kids would fill that up early in the night, and also be up in the trees, hanging out of any vantage point we could get.
Well, one story I remember on the back straight, they just put in a new grandstand. Really, it was still, fairly new, and it wasn't really fully developed, and people started jumping on the grandstand and having a look. And I remember John Cricky absolutely gave it to Eddie Gobby, put him in the fence, a cartwheeled right up against the top of the fence. Everybody in the grandstand absolutely packed their dacks because it was so close to the racetrack. That's just one more memory here at Claremont Speedway.
Here we are on the back straight, and we're looking into turn 3, and that was the scene of one of the most memorable crashes at Claremont Speedway, which happened in October 1969. This saw Tony Matter in car 73 run a wheel and catapult over the top of the fence, landed on the horse shed roof, collapsing it, turned the lights out, and many times that vision was used on Channel 7 for their Claremont Speedway replays. Unfortunately, that vision has gone, and we've tried to get a copy of it but been unsuccessful.
Well, Pedro, we're in turn number 3, but it's not famous on this one for the track. It's famous for what's behind us. If you can see in the background, it's just small from where you're looking from, but the famous Ferris wheel. Sideshow Alley was a big thing here at Claremont Speedway. A lot of guys took their girls to Claremont Speedway to watch the Speedway, but a lot of the girls weren't keen on car racing, so they would sell it so we could go down to Sideshow Alley. Also, if the racing wasn't that great, they would take their girl down there by the hand, put them on the wild mouse, and hopefully get lucky at the end of the night. Not that I ever did that.
No, I didn't either. The Speedway was too important for me. Now, I remember going to the Sideshow on the Showtime, but Speedway nights, mate, everything was out there.
Welcome to Slightly Sideways. We're bringing you the legends, and we have another one as our special guest today. Thanks to Pedro for joining me for this edition, and we have Geoff Stanton. What a superstar of Speedcars he was, and Pedro, what a fantastic guest we have today.
Thanks for having us here. Good to get a bit of humour on the go.
Stano, you were up there, mate, when I was a kid, going with the Speedway. You and Johnny Fenton and Keith Mann, and right up there. And it's great to be able to sit next to you. I know we've had a few coffees together, but my expectation of you has lifted, even from that, when I met you, and you're just a good bloke as well. So, legends can be good on the track and everything, yeah. But,
Well, we haven't even had a beer yet.
No, we haven't yet, mate, but I just wanted to let you know, and I know I speak for heaps of people out there.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem.
We were all just, in those days, just doing it for fun. You go home and get a whole lot of rubbish down the tip and go home and build a car. And I used to steal the stuff from Krasnosin's tip at Rob's Jetty and go home and build a car, and that's where we're doing it. That's the common sense part of life. There's not much there now.
Those were the days, eh?
Yeah, wow.
How involved and how much money it takes to build cars these days.
Yeah.
And in the old days, you just went and got what you could. Yeah, that's where the fun aspect came into it, I suppose. You wanted to get something a little bit better than the next guy, so you'd search down the tip and you'd see what someone else had, and you just try and get something better.
Yeah, cars come from over east. There were good cars there years ago, and you have a look and and you go to the tip and you get a whole lot of Austin shock absorbers and the links that go with them, and you get the Ford drive lines and the Ford stub axles, and then you go home and destroy them by trying to modify them and reinvent the wheel. That's the way it was.
Did you ever have any success reinventing the wheel?
No.
We find that's a pretty common thing.
I used to bend a few, but I have to go buy new ones.
Okay, before we go on, I'll just read a little bit about your career. And thanks again to Ken Brown for his stats of fact.
Yeah.
And Ken, of course, for people who don't know, and I don't know anybody that doesn't know Ken, but he's our stats man and our historian for Speedway. And thanks again, Brownie. You commenced at Claremont racing cycles.
Yep.
In the 1956 season.
Floriat Park Amateur Cycling Club.
So back in those days, and you'll see on the front of the programs, cycling was part of the program. It got everybody listed who was running cycles. And before the show, it took over by skid kids, but the cycles were a big thing back then.
Yep. Used to do demonstration rides with bikes with eccentric wheels and penny farthings and tandems and all that. Like demonstration nights they used to have, all done by the club. I don't even know where all that gear went now because the cycling club is sort of disbanded.
It's gone, yeah.
And yet cycling's got big.
Yeah.
Probably through like Cadell Evans and people like that. It's got bigger and bigger.
So you started with cycling, and then you got into the real speedway stuff. You started in your first speed car, the number 18 Vauxhall Vagabond.
Yeah.
In 1964-65.
Yeah, I went into Wyatt Motors to get a engine bit for a road car, and Jim Wyatt sat there behind his counter collecting his money and says, "I've got a guy I'm selling a car to, and he hasn't got a driver for the car. Are you married?" "Oh, yeah, I got married." And the kid, and he said, "Oh, well, that's no good. They kill a few." I'll take the risk. I'll go and see the bloke. So I went straight out and saw Reg Phillips, who was buying the car off Wyatt Motors at the time. And that's how it all started.
Pretty simple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just get keen, get the car. Reg didn't know what he was doing with the car, and went to try and start it the first day. I went and saw a cousin that was working for BP to get some JB fuel. I'd never heard of it, and I don't hear of it now even, but the thing would, fuel would go everywhere because the ants had made a home in the carburettor. And here we are, silver frosting the wheels and tightening all the gutter box to go and try and qualify to race the thing.
Amazing.
3 shots I had to qualify, and I didn't qualify.
Yeah.
But worked out in the end.
So a few years after you started, you had your first success was the 67-68 season in the Beaufort Holden.
Yep.
And you won your first WA Championship from Howard Revell from New South Wales and Noel McDonald.
Yep.
Then you had a switch in 69-70. You went to the sedan class, or production cars.
Yeah,
John
Day had started building a sedan car, and the Speedway company was involved. Jeff Brown was involved, probably supplied all the pipe for the roll bars. And John Day had a willing crew of guys that I still see some of them too, and they put the FJ Holden together. My job was to do a bit with the suspension to get it go around the corners, and eventually I placed a few times and won a feature race, I think. Something fell off the steering and I rode it off against the fence. So the engine out of that was put into a car that John Day also started building, an EH Holden. And the Speedway company said if you do a bit of work on it, you can have half the prize money. So they'd give me 3 weeks to help them do the suspension or whatever. So yeah, we started on a Thursday night at practice, and it got hot with a new radiator fitted. Ben Ludlow came to the rescue with a couple of beer cartons and taped them to the radiator. And he says, "You need a fence around the radiator, boys." And we go, "Yeah, really?" Anyway, he went and got the cartons, we taped them on there, and the thing wouldn't go to thermostat temperature. So
wow,
that saved our bacon, because the engine had a hole in the side of the sump, and we panel beat it and bronzed it up. And that had a bent Conrod bolt and all in it. And Cop Farmer says, "Well, that's bent, it can't undo," so we just covered it up with a sump. And that was the engine out of the FJ Holden that went straight in the EH. And
so the EH, was that Ben Ludlow Senior that did that? Or
yep.
Junior? Senior.
No, Ben Ludlow, yeah.
Yeah. And so you only had a run at practice on the Thursday.
Yep.
Fiddle around with the radiator, put some little walls in with beer carton.
Yep.
and went out and won the title on this Friday night.
We actually changed it to be a carton. Bad advertising, I reckon. And we put an element, Bob Farmer folded up, probably at the State Engineer Works, they were good sponsors.
Yeah.
And cut a few holes in it, and we cut it down in size, and that's what we had. That's what you went with.
That's a pretty short preparation to head into a state title.
Yeah.
Now you won that state title from Rod Watson and Jeff Halliday, so there was some good drivers in that field.
Yeah, Rod Watson started from row 20,
Yeah.
and I started from row about 3 or something, and Halliday started row 4 or 5 or something.
Okay.
So yeah, Rod Watson deserved to win the race, but
Yeah, he was a star.
he come from a long way back, but there was stoppages and all sorts of things.
Yeah. So did you drive the EH a lot after that?
No,
That was it. That was a one-off.
Yeah, had a few laps of practice, and then the event, and
That was it.
Lots of people drove it after that.
Did Deo buy you a beer after that?
They always bought you a beer.
So
I
moving
never
on.
went anywhere with John Day if it weren't catered for. And nothing's much changed because his family do the same thing.
Yeah,
It's interbred in him from John.
yeah,
He's just a do-it man, John was.
yeah. It's fantastic. So moving on, mate. You won your third title, your second one in a speed car in 72, 73. But that was in the Offenhauser,
Yep.
the Pillsworth car.
Yep.
Tell us a bit about that.
Well, where do I start? Well, I was driving the Speedway Company's Holden for a lot of years for the Speedway Company. Then Bob Farmer became the owner of the car. And in the end, I owned the engine that was in it. And Derek Pillsworth offered me the drive. And I said, yeah, can't wait, sort of thing. And so I got the engine out of the Holden 21, sold it off to someone else. But I was getting $12 a week to drive that.
That's pretty good.
And that was
a week.
Me dry cleaning for my undies. No, dry cleaning for tracksuit and goggles.
Yeah.
We used to put about 12 pairs of goggles on to start a race.
They're the gas goggles, were they?
You couldn't see where you're going anyway.
I was just going to say 12 pairs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's just...
Just to put the first 10 pair on with a corner tucked up here, and the last 2 this side. When you got there and there's no more tags to get on, you knew you were running short of them.
Yeah.
I always remember I had a chat with Hank Van Holt one year. He came over and stayed at a neighbour's place near me, and he was telling me back in the day, you know, you'd have a handkerchief on and your gas goggles, and he said you always wanted to get as fast as you could up the front because you couldn't breathe for a start and you couldn't see.
Yeah.
So unless you're at the front, you needed to get up the front as
Quick as possible.
quick as you can so you could breathe. Like, it wasn't all fun.
No. Is fitness a big thing back then still? Like, did you understand fitness like that? Probably not today.
I think I was really lucky because I had a job where I was carting bag flowers, hand unloading and hand loading,
Yeah.
and then unloading by hand again. And because I misbehaved with my driver's licence, I was offsiding on the flower truck for quite some time,
Yeah.
and so I was fitter.
Yeah.
But just because it was part of my job.
Mm.
So, yeah, I think fitness did help. You know, to sit there with a brick and a bit of pipe and a bit of string, a winder string up to get your forearms working.
Okay.
But you do, you know, motocross riders, they do that, they do ballet, that depends on how serious you are about
Yeah.
going fast and not getting hurt.
Yeah. So you won your two state titles in a speed car, one in the production car. You were runner-up in the speed car state title on 3 occasions.
Yeah.
That was in 66, 67, 68, 69 and 72, 73. So we were talking recently with Ron Cricky, who was runner-up 5 times in the state title.
Well, it's
And he
easy
was saying it was hard. You know.
easy to be a runner-up. Second's the first of the losers, isn't it?
Yeah.
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 It's still a good
they all want to
achievement when you
win.
look back, you know.
But in those days, the earlier days, you didn't have compounder tyre choices. You didn't have shock absorber choices. You didn't have this. It was what you had, is what you went with every week. And it's like sitting down to dinner with the same knife and fork and spoon, isn't it?
Yeah.
Exact same thing every week.
Not on spares and, yeah.
And, you know, if you had a barney with your missus in the traffic on the way there, you probably had a bad night.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty simple, wasn't it? You got there and what you had,
What you're racing.
yeah.
I did a bit of preparation with water and grading with the Speedway company through All Lawson early days. And I used to try and pour more water on a Thursday night when it was Fridays.
Yeah.
And I used to have a difference of opinion with Chum Taylor every Friday night because of the water on the track.
Yeah.
But we were, later in the nights, we were running around short distance from the fence in dust storms that you couldn't see where you're going half the time anyway. And that's, you know, times change, dirt changes, everything changes. So now the blokes today that are racing, someone wouldn't have enough heart to do what we used to do in an old homemade thing.
Yeah, no,
I probably shouldn't say that way, but
yeah.
they probably wouldn't be interested.
Mm.
Just, it was pretty prehistoric, pretty agricultural bits of equipment. I used to machine diffs down using a pipe cutter, no getting a lathe and weld axles, put them in bags of lime to bloody let them cure slowly so the welds didn't crystallise. And this sort of thing, it was just part of your deal. But there's a lot of people wouldn't have even done any of that. Bob Farmer's a metallurgist. He was a fitter and turner with state engineering. We learned a lot of him just because we wanted to do it.
Yeah.
So mate, you also won the New Year Derby in 73-74. You're 7th overall in the all-time Speedway winners list with 33 wins, feature race wins. That was 31 in a speed car and 2 in the sedan. And you're inducted into the Claremont Hall of Fame for speed cars.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty
good
effort.
Yeah. We used to go to a little window and the pay clerk would give us our pay and our passes. And we all congregated in the ladies' auxiliary hut where they used to get money for beer, and that went to the injured riders and drivers.
Now was that the place near the pits?
Yes.
A brick building near the pits?
Yeah,
Ladies' auxiliary.
Crichton tea rooms.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Yeah, on the corner.
I didn't drink much tea, so I couldn't remember that name.
So they used to meet. That's where you used to meet after the Speedway
They
event.
used to have a keg there. But my name was Jack Parsons had one leg, sidecar rider,
Yeah.
and he'd sell you the beer with jugs or whatever, and that money went to the ladies' auxiliary for injured riders and drivers.
Yeah.
Don't get all that now.
No, I was just going to say, there's nothing like that now. You go to America, there's a few foundations that, say at Knoxville, they have they sell t-shirts and all that kind of stuff, but not here. How do you think that changed?
Oh,
Why?
the closing down of Claremont is what changed everything.
Yeah.
I don't want to say of grapes, but the Speedcar Club has no identity because you don't nominate to go racing through the club. You don't get paid the same way we used to get paid. Old Ted Craig used to be a watchmaker in town, used to be the patent master, and you get your money and your passes for the next week. And they never come and get you because you didn't turn up. But in the old days, if you had a crash or a blow up and all but walk around the pits, that looks like it's going to cost a few bob to fix. Yeah, this might help and give you a bit of cash money.
Yeah.
Now the Speedway company probably didn't know that. But Old Lawson said no meant no, said yes meant yes. And he was a great bloke to work with and for.
Well, it's the old story, isn't it? If you don't have the stars out there, the people don't come.
Yep.
And it's a simple fact back in the day that if you could get the Geoff Stantons and the John Fentons and the Ray Clarks or whoever it was, anybody, to be out there, the people are going to come and
bums on the seats
watch
and
it.
hot dogs.
Yeah.
We didn't really, I didn't anyway, I didn't think much about anything. Like Friday night you're going to race a Speedcar. And whatever you did through the week to bend a bit of pipe, to fix this, to fix that, do whatever.
Yeah.
Or nearly break your mate's leg trying to drill some new bits into the floor of the trailer.
Yeah, whatever it took.
Things like that. And we got stuck out in the Nullarbor, me and Billy Joss. The drawbar of the trailer broke near the old Nullarbor station. And you look in the mirror and the trailer's out about 6 feet sideways out behind you because one side of the drawbar had broken. So we got a bit of a tree and some rope and we taped the thing together. Got to the station, the bloke started up this great big old diesel engine and all these switchboards and knives and things and he welded up and it was like that when the trailer was sold.
Yeah.
And that was the early part of our trip across the Nullarbor.
Yeah.
Yeah, one a good trip.
What was it like to in the latter years? They had the Craven Filter rounds, and if you qualified here, you get an invite to go over to Sydney and the East Coast, Rolly Park.
The highest 2 point scorers in each state got paid to travel.
Yeah.
I think at one point Queensland had North Queensland and Queensland, but that's because they're banana vendors.
Yeah.
Then everybody from the top 2 from every state went into every heat.
Yeah.
All around Australia. And you got paid. Once you started in a race, when you got to Adelaide, you got your money. It was good money too in those days. But yeah, and then when you go over there, if you haven't got the gear and you've always got a crew, but if you're not committed enough and don't have the backing to just say, we need that, go get it.
Yeah.
Operating on a shoestring don't work when you're driving across Australia.
Yeah. I remember in the book when we chatted and I did a little article about your career, especially obviously the first couple of times you went over there, you felt a bit intimidated because you were driving with guys that you were reading about when you were younger, and all of a sudden you're there in this tiny narrow Sydney showground racing against these legends.
Look, I've enjoyed going to small tracks, but I can tell you I didn't enjoy Sydney Royal. And I had a front wheel fall off in a heat race. Things that just normally wouldn't have, water pipes broken, the heat cooling system, all these sorts of things. You didn't have gear ratios to suit. So all these sorts of things that were just part of it. The Eastern Staters, they run interstate every week, sometimes twice a week.
Yeah.
And it was good when they all came over here because we give them a bit of their own back over here. But when you go to other tracks like that over there, if you're not mentally right on the job, you don't go good.
Learning curve.
All there is to it.
Were they forthcoming with some of the knowledge and stuff to the West Aussies or anyone around the state that was travelling? Because a lot of times we get Eastern States guys that might want to know a few things. Were they that kind of people, or were they like, no, you come in here and...
I used to ask Bob Tattersall, ask him all the questions, and he'd ask me, when are you going to shut up? And I'd say, when I can't understand your questions, the questions I'm giving you, I'm going to ask you again. Yeah. And he was good, but he used to sit there drinking scotch while he's doing it. So you didn't know if you're getting the real story or not.
Yeah.
Depends on how green you were.
What a name, mate.
He was one of the guys I've got here to ask you about because I remember you said you took the opportunity when it was a quiet moment and you went up and sat with him and asked a few things. And he had a message for you one year when he was visiting Claremont.
I did a couple of stupid things in the car and he said to me, these things will kill you, and if you don't stop doing what you just done tonight, it'll get you. So I'll see you when I get back here. but he never come back because he got cancer. Got to Adelaide and they never brought him back here.
So did you take notice? Did you pull back a bit, or?
Depends on who was here.
Yeah.
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 And I don't think I ever had the throttle completely to the floor.
Okay.
A lot of times, and when Howard Revell come and he beat us in a heat race or something, and I put my foot flat and I held it flat until I was halfway down the back straight and he wasn't alongside me anymore.
Right.
And there's a few times in your life where you do something and that's not always the way. Less is more sometimes.
Yeah, especially with those
And
tracks.
yeah, little things that stick in your mind about what you should have done. And I think probably a lot of people are sticking there when the chuck sticks at you. But you don't care, you're just doing what you enjoy doing.
Yeah.
Saying that, you didn't have any major crashes where you got injuries, did you? You had a few,
No, I
bit of bark off and stuff,
got
but
wiped out in the sedan car one time.
well,
And
yeah.
when I went to get out, my legs wouldn't work, I just fell on the ground. And I hadn't been drinking.
That's like, I was going to say, it's like coming out the pub.
Did that scare you, Stello? Was that
It did,
something
yeah,
that
things like that worried me a bit. But I raced bikes, I fell off bikes plenty of times. And
Yeah.
I played in motorbikes for a while, and I was the definition of a bike riding man in the Harley Club,
Yeah.
because the bike was always on top of me.
But there's been a few speedcar guys that have had some, like Fenno had
Yep.
a major accident, life-threatening, and there's been a few guys that have got really badly injured.
Yep.
But there must be something about your talent or something, or is it just luck?
Luck.
Yeah. It's amazing.
So when they brought out roll cages, we went to club meetings. They went on and on and on with all the things you could possibly think of about. That bloke's a nutcase anyway, he's going to be worse with a roll cage, and this bloke's this and that. Someone's going to get over it. Like,
Yeah.
John Fenton got badly hurt.
Yeah.
He had a roll cage sitting in the shed. I had a roll cage in the shed.
Yeah.
We were behind the 8 ball because Sydney controlled it, and Sydney had a divide in their club. You had all the guns that raced at Westmead and Sydney Royal and Exhibition Ground. There's always some meathead wants to put a wing on the speedcar. The wings are for fairies, angels and aeroplanes. And this people want to change the rules.
Yeah.
But they couldn't see that this is an extra protection that they trying to.
Yeah.
Anyway, I won the state round. Gus McGlue was in his Queensland Offenhauser and he had a roll cage on. When he went to Adelaide, he wasn't allowed to race with his roll cage on. So the strength of rules in this state weren't the same as they were in this state.
So there was a divide about different states and different rules.
If you're in a crash and you're sitting there parked and someone comes around and rolls into you with a roll cage on, they're going to break your neck, your collarbone, your arm. It's all a possibility. It could happen anyway.
Yeah.
So people used all this to just malinger on at a meeting.
Yeah. So 1971, it finally got changed after John's really bad crash. And did it make much difference? Like, didn't make any difference to the handling of the car or anything like that? Putting a roll cage on it, the weight factor come into it, or
less flex or stiffen it up at all?
Yeah.
Well, we put them on with rubber bushes anyway in the front. So, no, I don't know.
Yeah.
People talk about a 1/2 inch space here and a 1/2 inch space there. I wouldn't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
You see them changing spaces, 1/2 inch here and 1/2 inch there. Well, I suppose you'd have to go drive the thing to know, and you'd have to drive it a lot to know. I helped some guys not long ago, and they were arguing, the bloke and his father were arguing over 1/2 inch spacer. So I asked them if they had hacksaw, so I'd cut them in half and they could have 1/2 each. We'll leave that there anyway.
The one car it did make a difference to, from talking to Hank Van Holt, was your first car, the number 18 Vagabond.
Yeah.
It was that heavy that he decided to give it away because he said, if I put a roll cage on that, he said it wouldn't go up, it wouldn't finish up the straight. So that was a very old car though. We're going back to early 60s with that.
Barry Butterworth borrowed that off him one night and drove it, and he made the thing that wide and that long. I had a lot of trouble getting past him. In fact, I probably modified his back pusher bar a fair bit. But that car's a quick car.
We might take a quick break and thank some of our sponsors here at Slightly Sideways and come back with the legend and superstar and Pedro as well.
Year-old car number 7, Tom Watson Jr., number 9, Wayne Cover, and Geoff Stanton. Con Migro would pick him up in Foulhouse Corner.
Well, yes, Colin Tremere grabs the lead with a beautiful piece of driving. Young Wayne Cover had to drop back to second place. Then Geoff Stanton jumps into third position, but Colin Tremere leads them into Pitts Bend for the first time. The Speedcar All-Stars heat number 1 as they thunder out of turn number 4. 10 cars face the starter in this event, and believe you me, these cars are absolutely burning up the different Claremont Speedway track. Geoff Stanton grabs the lead as he moves through Foulhouse Corner. Colin Tremere drops back to second place and still in third place and going well as Wayne Cover. But young Tommy Watson in car number 7, the 16-year-old sensation, is starting to make his presence well and truly felt. Out of turn number 4 and down the main straight. Geoff Stanton in 21 leads, then Colin Tremere in second place. Back in third place is number 9, that driver's Wayne Cover. Then Ian Catchlove and Tommy Watson in car number 7. By gee, there's a great battle for the minor places, but there's no doubt about Geoff Stanton. Through Pitts Bend and out of turn number 4 as Wayne Cover grabs second place. Oh, Colin Tremere's in all the trouble around the place. Out of turn number 4 and down the main straight. Number 21, Geoff Stanton leads. Number 9, Wayne Cover. Back to 55 there is Ian Catchlove, and a beautiful piece of driving. Well, Wayne Cover left enough room to drive a Mack truck through, and you don't make mistakes like that in front of Catchlove. He is absolutely brilliant so far this season. Out of turn 4, the white flag comes out from General John Day. 21, Geoff Stanton jumps across the curb. Second place man is Ian Catchlove. Then back in third place and going well as number 9, Wayne Cover. But there's absolutely no stopping this man as he moves into Pitts Bend for the last time. Out of turn number 4, Geoff Stanton. Out of turn number 4, the double-checkered flag from General John Day. Back in second place, a brilliant drive from Ian Catchlove at 55. Then back to number 9, that driver's Wayne Cover, and number 7, Tommy Watson, finishing in 4th position.
And the wins time for that 5-lap event is 1:47.30.
Well, thanks for watching Slightly Sideways with us. We're trying to give you an insight into some of these legends that are around with us still, because one day we're all going to be gone, and hopefully people get the stories from the actual guys that live their lives. So without just saying, oh, they said and I think that was the case, you can actually hear from the horse's mouth as such. And Stano, you've got plenty to tell, so we could be here for a little while.
I'll distort the story.
Yeah, if you don't know, mate, just make it up.
Yeah, that's right. If you don't hear a rumour, we make one up.
If you haven't heard a rumour by 9 in the morning, make one up. In the afternoon, it'll be pretty vivid.
Now, Stano, you had a run in the Pillsworth Offenhauser.
Yep.
That was in the early 70s.
Yep.
You won a second state title, your second Speedcar state title, and then you decided to retire.
Yep.
And you took a 10-year break and you went yachting.
Yep.
Tell us about what happened with the Offie and why you chose to go at that time.
Well, Murphy was working on the car with me, and he had this idea about the mono construction, be better for this and that. Supposedly safety. Well, we put everything from the Offenhauser into the mono constructed car, which wasn't very comfortable compared to the old car. But first night out, people were laughing at us because of the angle of the front shock absorbers and this and that. And
really nice.
So you go home with a chip on your shoulder and come back and it's got bigger, you got on both shoulders. So, and you end up winning a heat race, A-grade heat race from the back in record time.
Okay.
So the car was good. You could aim it at potholes and drive through them, and it came out nice. But there was plenty to do and learn about, I think. But I had a broken crankshaft, and then conrods were different models in the engine, and a whole lot of issues that were sending me broke. So I thought, the time I got out.
Also, there was a couple of things. The rules changed a bit for the way Geoff had built the car with the wiring or something, and the club said you got to do it this way.
No. We had the tub sections were all lined with a rubberised thing, so if it had been in a severe crash, all the joints wouldn't open up and leak the fluids and that out. We would run oil in one side of the car and fuel on the other side of the car. So that got squashed at a WASDA Speedcar meeting.
Yeah.
So we had to go and get a fuel tank built and an oil tank built and put extra weight on the car. But it was just a mono-constructed bathtub with all the pipes for the front of 6 bolts and all the pipes for everything off the back on 6 bolts.
And that was the only one of its kind, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
George Stanton had one in Sydney, but that was a square tube frame
Okay.
wrapped in aluminium.
Yeah.
And that was his wedge, I think they called it.
Yeah, I remember that.
He had issues with
Winfield?
with the rules over there as well.
Yeah.
I think it was at the time. Maybe. So you sort of got a bit disheartened, yeah?
Yep. And officials.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, we may as well slam the officials, right?
Yeah.
They've been getting slammed, mate.
They got a job to do. They're like a bloody copper.
Yeah.
That's why I was carting flour for a living. But they took my licence off me for misusing my licence.
Okay. Yeah.
But officials have got a job to do, but I tried doing an official's job for the sprint cars once, and
Did you?
that ended up pretty untidy affair.
Tell us what and how, which one?
Well, a lot of spoiled brats, and you're trying to get a race started. Murphy got me the job there, and it was a national affair thing. And all you were trying to do is enforce the club's rules. They didn't seem to give a big rat's about it, so I started giving them a bit, and I spoke to one bloke, and he still had his helmet on, so that was my mistake. I should have waited until he got out of the car with his helmet off. But his son decided to verbally berate me for pulling him into gear, and I just said, well, I'm talking to the monkey, not the peanut. And officials above that didn't like that much either. So, and it got better when the Queensland guy, Kelly, would line up. And the father, Kelly, said, oh, mortgage my house, I've done this. I said, mate, can I lend your hanky, because mine went through, I've done all that. And if you don't like it, load your cars up and go back to Queensland.
Yeah.
So I didn't do that job anymore.
No.
So you found it so difficult because you've got a job to do, the rules are there, and everyone goes, yeah, I just want it my way and I'm going to do what I like.
It seems simple, doesn't it? It
Yeah.
should be
I'm a bit
simple.
old, probably getting a bit anyway, and I go and watch Speedway, I love it, and I watch things that happen, and I know what happens because I've been there and probably done most of it. When the chief steward's not doing his job and the driver's taking their own hands what they're going to do about what. I've had presidents come and have a go at me for me outspoken, loud, verbally giving someone a bit of it. And if the chief steward was doing his job, you wouldn't have all this other extra stuff going on. The worst thing in Speedway is crews that get out of control in the pits and women. So I don't think I better add any more to that.
I was going to say, you might be on his own.
Yeah. we'll move on. So, mate, you took a break from Speedway. You had 10 years off. You came back in '85 with a new speed car.
Yeah. A bit of old stuff out of an old car.
Okay, yeah.
And a new Murphy. Murphy built 12 cars, all the same chassis.
Yeah.
And I got one of them. and I'd copied the car that his son had been driving.
Yeah.
I wrote down what torsion bars, what shockers they'd been using, and all this sort of stuff. And then I went and bought a lump of scrap metal from Rose Street, Shepherd's Scrapyard in Rose Street, and made heaps of torsion bar arms, stops, slider adjusters, shocker mounts, all out of this big sheet of aluminium. And that was the start of that car.
Do you remember what made you come back? Did you miss it, or did you get sick of sailing, or did you?
I got Jeff Pilgrim to help mount some bits and pieces from the fuel injection on my son's sidecar.
Ah, right. Okay.
And he had a second car sitting there, and
Yeah.
I said, well, I'm not driving a bloody Volkswagen. There's a 2600 engine you can buy. Put one, and they did.
Yeah. Okay.
Johnny Tetlow, an old mate of mine, used to be a speedboat racer.
Yeah.
A good one at that. We got into it and built the thing up.
Did it feel like yeah, this is what I should be doing again?
Well, the first heat, I started outside Gavin Mydrum. I didn't want him to beat me in the first corner. So I'd give this thing what for and turned around and stuffed it in the fence backwards and
Good.
wrecked the
Good
did.
start.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
lesson learned.
Yeah. So how did you find it second time around after 10 years out of the seat?
Well,
Was there there's still a lot of people in the club the same, and there was obviously new ones, but was there anything, dramatically different?
yeah, we had bigger tyre choices, things like that can change the whole deal pretty easy.
Mm.
And crossbars were, I'd never sat in anything like that. The mono had parallel bars stuck in those crossbars. But no, it's all about feeling your way in it.
Yeah.
Cost-wise, you've gone 10 years. Did you find it, like when you left, you were disheartened and, it was eating into your family budget, let's say, and your lifestyle? But then when you come back 10 years later, was it a massive increase of anything surprising, or was it fairly reasonable?
Probably just went at it a bit dog-headed, straight into it, what you have to have, what you're going to get, which was, at the time, fairly good, but I should have never messed around with a Sigma engine but there's not many guys that raced Claremont that didn't have a Sigma engine at some time or other.
Okay.
So they were, because it was an engine size that was compatible with rules, but pretty useless thing.
You tried Toyota as well?
Yeah.
Any other engines in your second
No.
come back? Just a Toyota.
Yeah.
How did that go? Because Toyotas are pretty big in speed cars.
Well, I think I was only
now.
1/10 of a second off that Matthews and Laura qualifying night, and that was to Tom Watson Jr.
Right.
So the thing was quick.
Okay.
And I didn't do much development with it. I spent lots of money getting all the tricks and bits and pieces, but I think half the time I was confused about it anyway. But I had a couple of good mates, who were very good mechanics, and it was a pretty good. It should have been a class. There should have been a 2-litre class.
Okay.
All the multi-valve engines can make so much more horsepower, not through torque, but through engine speed. And I just went through with head torque, Jerry Calaresi and Michael Sabatini, and they checked the valve spring tensions for me in the lift. And they had the head flowed, it was meant to make so much horsepower at so many valve lift. I put all lightweight superbike engine parts in the head. Lots of money.
Yep.
But you're going to run at 40 lap races, that's what you've got. A bloke that helped me with the camshaft timing and that, he was good on motorbikes, but he was only looking at 5 lap races, something like that. We're looking at 20 laps and 30 laps.
Yeah.
But awesome engine, awesome. Neville Lance couldn't get past me, probably because I was all over the joint, but he couldn't get past me at Albany. We had 3 restarts and a stoppage, and I still won the feature race. I won every race bar 1 on the night, and Ron Pine beat me in that race, in a heat race.
So that's pretty good. You had a pretty good
Thing could be very quick.
yeah.
But old fat bloke like me, ain't gonna go that quick.
Now, talking about going to the country, the country rounds obviously took you to a lot of different tracks
Some of them
around the
don't
state.
exist anymore.
Yes, yeah. But there was a particular meeting at Campbelda that you were at.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
If you've got enemies, I'll have one listen now. Well, he might be dead. We played a prank. I had a couple of crew members who were pretty lively, a lot younger than me. They were always in something for a bit of fun. And we opened a couple of cans of beer and gave one to Con Migro and one to Miles Tomlinson. And then we went and got the pit steward to kick him out for drinking in the pits. Miles Tomlinson.
He didn't like that?
Very distasteful. and Con's never mentioned it.
No?
Probably because he drank the beer.
That's
I
funny.
don't know. But anyway, that's the sort of things that having a bit of fun, you're going away, you probably adrenaline's starting to happen a bit when you get to a speedway like that.
Well, you've got to make your own fun sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's a high pressure. I mean, it's good out in the country. Every speedway person I speak to, driver, they enjoy getting out and going to the bush, running where it's less pressure, you know.
More relaxed, more fun.
More relaxed and, you know.
In general.
Going back a long time, Charlie West and myself got invited to go to Kalgoorlie for the Goldfields Championship. Tom Watson was up there. He ended up crashing into the fence because he had a car the same colour as Charlie's, and Charlie didn't like that.
Hey, give it to him, you reckon?
Tom was where he shouldn't have been.
This car here.
Anyway, they paid us $100 to go up there, and they paid our fuel to get up there. They give us our racing fuel, they give us trophies, and they give us beer after the meeting and fuel to get home.
That's a pretty good deal.
Wow.
That's a hell of a deal, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
So,
it is.
and I see on I think it's on Facebook, Brad Steele's just driven a truck back from over east. And he stopped and had a meal, the first sit-down meal at Tammany. Well, he should have come the rest of the 250 k's and had a roast at home.
Yeah.
But I put a jibe on there about you didn't eat all your veggies.
Well, you know a lot about truck driving because you did that for a long time.
Yeah.
Stano, we'll get onto a couple of other incidents that I'd like to bring up. There's one name that I'd like to mention, and he was, you and he were very close back in the early days, and it's Bill Jost.
We're too old to argue now.
Now, Josty was known for his jokes, and he was the king. He was labelled as the king. You have a story about one day at the track when they set you up.
Yeah, there's something to do with trying to promote and antagonise people, I think. But anyway, I was unaware that Bill Jost and Bob Farmer and Orville Lawson and someone would have got paid for this, but I didn't. and started a third of a series of match races, which we already won 2 of them. So, and Bob Farmer was a mechanic on the 21 Holden, and Jamie Gard, the road racing extraordinaire bloke, he was Bill Jost mechanic. So there's a lot of stirring up in there. Anyway, I was none the wiser. I would go to line up for a 2-lap dash, and Josty wouldn't line up, and then he's banging wheels, and every time I banged a wheel like that, I had to repair the thing myself probably, or get it off and give Bob Farmer the job to do the state engineering works. But anyway, we get black flag at the start. Walked out in front of us with black flag. I did a few laps in Queensland under a black flag, and it cost me a lot of money. I kept looking the other way. I didn't see the black flag, but they could see me. But anyway, I was sort of feeling that I was the fault for all this. So anyway, I went and gave Josty a clout. Got out of the car. Went over and gave him a clout. All did hurt my hand. But he didn't take his helmet off. Anyway, now that was something that was organised behind the scenes, unbeknown to me. And I reacted the way I shouldn't have.
And they didn't have email then, because I can't say you didn't get the email.
No one told me.
Nah, they set you up well and truly.
Yeah.
Now, still on Josty, there's another great story we need to hear. Apparently one night at Claremont, he broke down and he pulled up by the fence.
Yep.
And he decided to get out of the car.
Yep.
And climb over the fence.
Yes.
Tell us what happened.
There's a whole lot of people. There were people that I knew. You could say that it was a fan club, but there were people I knew. My kids went to school with their kids, and they used to be there every Tuesday of practice or Wednesday of practice. Put them tarpaulin down with big bricks on the side, on the corners, and that was their spot every Friday night. And they helped Geoff back over the fence.
That's hard to believe, isn't it? That is amazing.
I can't elaborate more because both the parents of those kids are deceased.
Right. So the Stanton fan club strikes again. That's great. Just on match racing, that was pretty big back in the day.
Yep.
In the 60s, probably in the 50s, in the 60s, and it sort of faded out a little bit in the 70s. But, you know, getting into nationals, Americans and interstaters over, you'd do these match races every time there was someone here.
The crowd would get right behind it, the commentators would build up.
Yeah, it was awesome.
I've been in a few of them, and sometimes you think that the Eastern Staters are laying down for you. You know, I mean, I don't think Howard Revell was a hell of a nice guy. I still communicate with him now and then. And at a match race with him, he beat me holler a couple of times in individual racing, a feature race. And there's no way in the world I was going to let him beat me in this other match race.
Yeah.
But he was always quick, but then the next thing you know, they got a head gasket off the car, they replace the head gasket in between races. And so there's good and the bad, and there's luck and there's bad luck.
What kind of races did you like the most? I mean, you had like the handicaps, you had Indian files, you know, knockouts. What did you go to the racetrack and go, yeah, I just love getting into this
Feature race.
Just the feature race, yeah. And did you like starting towards the back for the competitive part of it, or would you have rather have gone highest
Back
points?
eight used to draw out of a hat. And because I used to just sit back and never went in for the first pickup out of the hat, I always ended up getting a back start posse. I only ever started in the feature race in front of Bill Joss once.
Really?
In the whole year.
You probably should have given him another clap for that.
I had too many mates.
Now, Josty was Josty never won a state title.
No.
He was second for 1 year in the state title, but he won 30 feature races, and he was called the King.
Yeah.
What was it about Josty? He just had bad luck on big nights, or it's incredible.
It crashed or blew up.
Yeah, it's an amazing record.
It's you see these guys of today, they have a crash. Really, once you have a crash, if you're gone barrel rolled or end for end, to me, you'd be looking and getting everything crack tested or dye tested, or magnafluxed, or whatever testing you have to do to, because there's so much strain goes on. Everyone wants to get everything light. Yeah. We used to stuff it out of a Ford V8 truck, and that was pretty good. Austin diffs that had 9 ratios, but they're big heavy things.
Yeah.
Then you find out the Austins make a yoke for the diff out of aluminium, so you start looking at changing them. But that's part of the process of cars getting built and to where they're at today.
There's a fantastic photo, I think it's Peter Roebuck's, we'll try to find it if we can, of you and Josty in the pits, just sitting there. And it's one of those images that just tell a story just by you two sitting there. You probably didn't even notice that at the time of what kind of photo that would be pretty, iconic.
Because you guys, like in Sydney, the WA Speedcar guys were held up there, high esteem, big balls and courageous and whatever. And back in the day, you had a huge following. I remember you saying to me when you used to draw the marbles out, there'd be people along the pits next to the fence, 10 deep, yelling out, and see what the draw was like.
Yeah, I think they used to call Bill a cheat.
Did they?
I would never do that.
Nah, of course not. Nah.
Not to his face.
No.
He had nicknames for everyone. We had nicknames for him.
Yeah.
The kids used to get all of his nickname, and that wasn't very pleasant. Anyway.
You had a couple of nicknames. You were a gentleman at the track and whatever, and then you got Stano, of course. But you also had the Goose for a while, didn't you? Or was that just a
That's one of Bill
newspaper?
Geoff's rumours.
Yeah.
I was just about to say, if he's going to punch someone you're closest, that's fine with me.
I remember there was a newspaper article, and it had a story about you, Geoff Stanton, and someone, and they had you as the Goose.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a Geoff show.
Yeah. King Billy.
King Billy.
Did oh, sorry, I'm just going to jump in. Did you have a couple of competitors that you really, with Jossie obviously, but a couple of competitors that you really loved racing with and thought, this guy's a good challenge, great race car driver, and this is fun over the whole time?
No, not really. No.
That's
Just
I've asked this a few times, and most people say I didn't really have one, two favourites.
No,
I just
that's
like
amazing,
racing.
isn't it?
Yeah, interesting.
yeah, no, yeah. One bloke that used to really get up everyone's nose, including mine, was Tony Matter. If you went anywhere near Tony Matter in a race, you'd be sure you're going to get it rammed up the arse as you're going back to the pits.
Yeah.
You could hear the big Chevy roar behind you and you brace yourself. And that was a fairly regular event.
Yeah.
But Tony used to do that to try and antagonise you.
Yeah. Intimidate and all that.
If you let it happen, let it get to you. Yes.
And he won a state title.
Yep.
And he didn't race speed cars for all that long.
No.
Only a few seasons. So, I suppose the opportunity to make your mark and,
When I first started, I was warned that Gordon Bell had eyes in the back of his head and don't do this and don't do that. Well, here's a hell of a guy.
Yeah.
A hell of a guy. Good competitor and a hell of a guy.
G'day, Belly.
Not McDonald. Didn't say much, but you're always wary of where you're going to try and pass him. In fact, on the night you wouldn't get near him to pass him because he'd go like a rocket. With his Cortina, he rounded up two Blair Shepherd's Offenhausers down the back straight one night. But the little engine was working hard and it wasn't a regular sort of event for it. But no, there's not too many guys. When you went over east, there's guys that if you upset them, you knew you were in for a hard night's work.
Yeah.
Ron Wallace, George Tatnell, blokes like that.
Well, they both got reputations, haven't they?
Yeah.
Being tough.
Pit crew, where most of the antagonising comes from.
Yeah.
And you got plenty of mates at pit crews, and I had plenty of pit crews that I had a couple of them around my age, and they used to say, just settle down, just don't worry about it, don't do this, don't do that.
Speaking of pit crews, you had 3 regulars, mate, that helped you, must have helped you, really a lot through your
Under
career.
Bobby Farmer,
Yes.
Fred Baxhill,
Yep.
he worked for us at the State Airworks, Freddie Woodhouse,
Yep.
and the bloke I went to tech school in the electrical trade with John Billingham.
And you really need people, reliable people you can turn to for a bit of advice. They can settle you down if you
Have a look at the people that are competitors now in the Speedcar Club that only turn up when it suits them. And if you're running a business and you had them working for you, you'd go broke.
Yeah.
So you've got to have, the club has no identity. So there is no strings for the club to control any of it. So if someone's got a wedding on, don't go to the Speedway. Plan a wedding for another day, or plan a divorce.
Yeah, things have changed, all right. That's for sure.
Well, we might come back with a few more questions about the WASDA stuff because it sounds quite interesting. But we'll take another break, thanks some sponsors, and come back with Geoff Stanton, one of the legends of speedcar racing here in Western Australia. Welcome back to Slightly Sideways. We have Geoff Stanton with us, one of the legends of speedcar racing. And Geoff, I normally ask every person that comes on the show, family life and speedway don't always mix. Speedway takes up a lot of time, obviously racing, the money, the preparation of the race cars, all that kind of stuff. Was it hard to juggle family life and speedway?
It's easy, you just got to have a lot of excuses. If you play golf,
Yep.
you're always going to be batting across that little ball around the golf club, ain't you?
Yep.
If you're better, you go to the races.
Yep.
It doesn't matter what you do, you always got an excuse.
Right. Yep.
So you can't let that really worry you that much.
Yeah. Okay. So
Depends on what brand of wife you got.
right. I'm not sure I'll ask any more about that then. I'll give you the next one, Pedro. We'll stay at that.
Getting off that subject, did you ever think about having a run in another class? You had to run in the sedan early, and then you had your speed car. Did you ever think I'm going to try and run a sprint car?
I had a few starts in the first of John Day's cars.
Yep.
And I started developing some lazy habits.
Mm-hmm.
The sedan car, I mean, you drove it with one hand, hang on to the roll cage with the other hand, round the corner and up the straight, and other guys go whipping past you and understeer up to the fence and off you go.
Yeah.
No, you're getting bad habits. You've got lazy habits driving a sedan car.
Yep.
But it was only a temporary thing, and I don't know if I put in 10 or something feature races in the sedan car for John.
Mm.
George Tapman come over and crashed into everyone that was anybody, and that was the start of the bits falling off that. But George used to get easy chuck. The promoter of Adelaide Speedway hit him in the face with a cake, and he was famous for it. Kimber Nathan got a cream cake one night. Yeah. George Tapman was guilty of a lot of things like that. But he had a big backstop, his brother Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big boy.
Don't mess with Joe.
Errors of speed cars, it's always hard. People compare people, like even in boxing, you know, who would beat who and what error and all that kind of stuff. But I would like to know the error of speed car racing maybe in the last 10 years. Would there be something that you would have loved to have gone and done, as well compete with some of the guys, even going back to like Figs and all that kind of stuff a bit more? That era, would you have enjoyed it, or are you happy just doing your thing in your era and your time?
No, I got interested in more in the engines and the electrics and fuel systems and all that. And so it worked pretty well for me with the Toyota engine when I put it in. But like, you go back to the start of it, you had maybe you got 100 horsepower in something that did a bit of work on, and you had 6-inch wide tyres, and the Claremont track was a big track by comparison over east, and so if you got horsepower and you got going, it was fairly fast at the end of the straight. I think we might have been clocked at 70 something other mile an hour at the end of the back straight at one stage. So at 70 mile an hour, when you get into the corner, you're probably out of control for 10 or 20 or 30 feet every time you went into a corner, because the surface, the skinny tyres, that's a totally different deal. Then later on you come along with the bigger tyres and compounds and offsets, and I mean, you used to buy a 2-inch offset wheel for the right front, a 2-inch offset wheel for the right rear. The front left was a left 3-inch offset, the left rear was a 3-inch offset. That's what you had. So there's not much you could do. You didn't have splines. I don't know how they work it out.
You're an avid speedway lover, and you still go now.
Yep.
Like when you see some of the stuff that guys are doing in speed cars, like Caden and border and all that when they do those slide jump after slide jump on each other.
Yeah.
Do you think you hold your breath sometimes? Think, gee, they're pushing their limits now.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that some of it's not necessary. It's good to see some of it, but then you see some of the guys pull on it, and you think there's going to be a short race here because there's going to be a stoppage. And some blokes are doing it, and they're not really equipped to do it, I don't think. It's unfortunate. The speed cars have got fewer numbers. They're getting better, and the racing's getting better. They've got different engines, pretty sensitive because they're like the old Offenhauser I had worn out, and you get an update for it. But with an update, there's always another problem. And I've had some good people, Jerry and Sabo at Head Talk, and Peter Greig, the motorbike guy, helped me with all the stuff I did with the Toyota. There should have been a 2 litre because there's Nissan engines, there's the Ford engines, there's Toyota engines, good engines that'll just keep going. Not going to break.
Yeah.
I run a Toyota engine to 11,000 revs, and they had all the standard valves in the head.
Jeez, yeah.
So that's expecting a lot, but it never given me any trouble. The trouble I had with it was my own doing. So some of the little oversights, tried to over-engineer things, little things like an O-ring breaking its seal, and you put it back in and they don't line them up the same as they come out, chuck them away and put new ones in. Got the Kalgoorlie and it was missing and going away, it was air leak. So I run around trying to find Toyota deals in Kalgoorlie, and on Saturday morning it wasn't the best thing in town. So, and there's a lot of pubs in between. Yeah, some of it's your own doing, over-engineering things, trying to re-engineering things. I tried to use as many of the original parts of the Toyota engine in them. But then you modify it for this and modify it for that. But if you don't use good equipment, good metal, you've got to get, I used to get a lot of machining done by Hook McGee.
Yep.
And get him before he had a few beers, great job. Don't go back in the afternoon, but
Get him in the morning, you reckon?
well, yeah,
Drink
drink
at
it with him.
lunchtime.
But Geoff, you still had your Toyota up until a couple of years ago,
Yep,
and you sold it on.
yep.
We saw it a couple of times at Gloucester Park in the Classic Speedway show, and that. It's good to see. Good to see a few of those old cars still around.
I'm looking at in a shed at a TQ and a motorbike,
Okay.
but I got other issues to sort out before I go any further with that. There's that really old TQ looks to me like it might have a matchless aluminium engine in it.
Yeah.
And the motorbike's a BSA.
It's amazing what's around.
Yeah.
There's just pieces of gold everywhere. You just got to find them. So
I'd fall off a motorbike now, I think. But
Probably.
Georgie Green is a top motocross rider in his day. Had a BSA Victor and it's sitting in the shed in bits. Someone borrowed the back wheel out of it, never give him the back wheel back.
Yeah.
And I kept saying to him, Georgie, you got to get that there, let's get a bit of rust off it.
Yeah.
And he's also got a 250 Elsinore, which were a gun bike in their day.
Okay.
So no, motorsport's a big part of me.
Coming in here to the museum, which is in Claremont, and we encourage you to come down and have a look at it as well. 66 Victoria Street. What was your thoughts when you walked in?
Excellent. What you see here should have happened years ago, and the time periods that I heard that made this happen was a pretty short period. And to get this together like it is, and I've been here a couple of hours now, and there's people come in that recognise you and don't recognise you, and they see all these things and start out. It's amazing. Excellent.
Brings back a lot of memories.
Oh, yeah.
And good and bad and indifferent and people. And
I haven't got any really bad in my life in Speedway. I've had a lot of fun, more than most.
That's good to hear.
That's great. I think that's a great way to finish.
I think
we're going to wrap it up. We're going to get kicked out soon. So, Geoff Stanton, we really appreciate your time. Thank
No
you
worries.
so much
Thanks,
for
Rob.
the things that you've done in Speedway
Cheers.
and sharing some of your story with us. I say it every episode, but we could sit here for another 2 hours. But we might catch up again at some point in time and have another chat. And yeah, Pedro, it's been another good show, and
fantastic,
really appreciate you coming, buddy.
Hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah. It's always good to air some of your grievances.
All right, well, thanks again. Please come down to the Claremont Museum and see this. It's only on for a short amount of time, realistically, but it's the most popular display they've had here ever, and we want to make sure that you come down and show your support, because no one knows what it can lead to, if it can lead to anything. So please come down, and we'd like to thank you for watching Slightly Sideways. My main man Pedro here and Geoff Stanton, and we appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.
Probably should have a donations tin at the door, I reckon.
It's not bad, yeah.
For future reference.
All right, we might be able to organise that.
Yeah.
Thanks again.